I still remember the exact moment my life changed forever. It was a rainy Thursday evening in September, and I was curled up on my worn-out couch in my small Brooklyn apartment, mindlessly scrolling through Netflix, when my best friend Sarah burst through my door without knocking. "Emma Chen, we need to talk," she announced, dropping her designer handbag on my coffee table and plopping down next to me with the determination of someone on a mission. I paused my show and looked at her skeptically. "About what?" "About the fact that you're 32 years old, and you haven't been on a date in 2 years," she said, already reaching for my phone on the side table. "It's time." I snatched it back protectively. "I've been busy with work. The promotion to project manager has been demanding." "Excuses," Sarah interrupted, giving me that look she perfected since we became roommates in college 10 years ago. "You've been using work as a shield since Marcus broke your heart. But honey, it's been 2 years. You can't let one bad relationship define your entire romantic future." "Marcus?" Just hearing his name made my chest tighten slightly. My ex-fiancé, who'd called off our wedding 6 weeks before the ceremony because he'd realized he was still in love with his ex-girlfriend. The humiliation of canceling everything, returning gifts, explaining to family and friends. It had nearly destroyed me. "I'm fine being single," I protested weakly. "No, you're not," Sarah said gently, her tone softening. "I see you, Em. You're lonely. You scroll through Instagram, looking at other people's happy relationships. You watch nothing but romantic movies. You order dinner for 2 and eat both portions yourself. You deserve to be happy, to find someone who treats you the way you deserve." Her words hit closer to home than I wanted to admit. Loneliness had become my constant companion, a quiet ache that never fully went away. "Fine," I sighed, handing her my phone. "But I'm not promising anything." Sarah's face lit up as she downloaded 3 different dating apps. "Trust me on this. Not all men are like Marcus. There are good guys out there, successful, honest, ready for real commitment." She helped me set up my profile, choosing the best photos from my social media. The one of me laughing at her birthday party, another from our trip to Maine where the ocean breeze had made my hair look effortlessly romantic, and a casual shot of me reading in Central Park. For my bio I wrote, "Project manager by day, bookworm by night. I believe in rainy day coffee dates, handwritten notes, and the Oxford comma. Looking for someone genuine who appreciates deep conversations and spontaneous adventures." "Perfect," Sarah approved. "Authentic, specific, not desperate. Now let's see who's out there." We spent the next hour swiping through profiles. Most were disappointing. Gym selfies with no personality, generic bios that said nothing, obvious players looking for hookups. I was about to give up when a profile made me stop. Daniel Park, 38, CEO of Park Industries. The photos were striking but not show-offy. One showed him in a perfectly tailored navy suit at what looked like a business conference, his posture confident but approachable. Another was a candid shot of him volunteering at what appeared to be a food bank, wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt, serving meals with a genuine smile. The third showed him reading a book at a cafe, completely absorbed. His bio was refreshingly simple. "Built my company from the ground up. Now looking for someone genuine to share life's adventures with." No games, no drama, just real connection. Favorite things: old bookstores, Sunday morning coffee, meaningful conversations that last for hours, and proving people wrong who said I couldn't succeed. "He's handsome," Sarah commented, looking over my shoulder. "And a CEO. Girl, swipe right immediately." "I don't know." I hesitated. "He seems out of my league." "Stop that," Sarah said firmly. "You're smart, beautiful, successful in your own right, and you have the biggest heart of anyone I know. You're nobody's second choice, Emma. Now swipe right before I do it for you." I swiped right, half expecting nothing to happen. But almost immediately my phone buzzed. "It's a match," Sarah squealed. My heart raced as I stared at the notification. Within seconds, a message appeared. "Emma, your profile caught my attention immediately. Someone who appreciates both the Oxford comma and spontaneous adventures? I think we might get along perfectly. Your bio mentions rainy day coffee dates. I happen to know the perfect cafe near a century-old bookshop downtown. Would you be interested in meeting this Saturday at 2 p.m.? I promise I'm more interesting in person than my profile suggests." Sarah grabbed my phone to read the message and practically screamed. He's articulate, he's making specific plans. He referenced your bio. Emma, this is how it's supposed to be done. Say yes. My hands trembled slightly as I typed back. You had me at Century-Old Bookshop. Saturday at 2 p.m. sounds perfect. I'll bring my appreciation for the Oxford comma. You bring the interesting conversation you promised. His response came quickly. Deal. The cafe is called Chapter and Verse on Greenwich Avenue. I'll be the one who arrives 5 minutes early because I'm too excited to wait. Looking forward to meeting you, Emma. I couldn't help but smile. There was something charming about his straightforwardness, his confidence without arrogance. This is happening, Sarah said, already planning my outfit in her head. We have 2 days to prepare. We need to pick the perfect first date outfit, practice conversation topics, and... Sarah, I interrupted, laughing despite my nervousness. It's just coffee. It's never just coffee, she said wisely. This could be the beginning of something amazing. I have a good feeling about this Daniel Park. If only we had known how wrong that feeling would turn out to be. Saturday morning arrived with clear skies and unusual warmth for late September. I woke up at 7 a.m. despite the date being 7 hours away, my stomach a tangle of nerves and excitement. Sarah had stayed over Friday night, claiming she needed to supervise my preparation. In reality, I think she was just excited to live vicariously through my first date in 2 years. Okay, she said, laying out 3 different outfit options on my bed. We need to strike the perfect balance. Casual enough that you don't look like you're trying too hard, but polished enough to show you made an effort. We settled on my favorite dark jeans, a soft cream cashmere sweater that Sarah insisted brought out my skin tone, and ankle boots that were comfortable enough for walking but stylish enough to feel confident in. Simple gold earrings and minimal makeup completed the look. You look beautiful, Sarah said, squeezing my shoulders as I stared at my reflection. Natural, approachable, like yourself on your best day. What if he's nothing like his profile? I worried aloud. What if the conversation is awkward? What if... Emma, Sarah interrupted gently. Stop catastrophizing. Even if it doesn't work out, it's just one afternoon. You're just meeting another human for coffee. No pressure, no expectations. Just see if you enjoy his company. I arrived at Chapter and Verse at exactly 2 p.m., but Daniel was already there, sitting at a corner table near the window with 2 menus in front of him. He stood the moment he saw me, and I was struck by how much better he looked in person than in his photos. He was tall, probably 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out his charcoal gray sweater perfectly. His dark hair was styled but looked natural, and when he smiled, his whole face transformed with warmth. Emma, he said, and I loved the way my name sounded in his voice, warm, genuine, like he was truly happy to see me. You're even more beautiful than your pictures. I felt my cheeks warm. Thank you. You're pretty photogenic yourself. He pulled out my chair, an old-fashioned gesture that felt sincere rather than performative, and waited until I was seated before returning to his own seat. I took the liberty of getting us a table by the window, he said. I noticed in one of your photos that you like natural light when you read, so I thought you might appreciate it. The fact that he paid attention to that small detail made my heart skip. That's very observant of you. We ordered coffee, a caramel latte for me, black coffee for him, and the conversation flowed with surprising ease. There were no awkward silences, no struggling for topics, no feeling like I was being interviewed or auditioning. So tell me about project management, he said, leaning forward with genuine interest. What do you love about it? Honestly, I love the problem-solving aspect, I explained, relaxing into the conversation. Every project is like a puzzle. You have limited resources, tight timelines, different personalities to manage, and unexpected obstacles. Making all those pieces fit together to create something successful is incredibly satisfying. That's exactly how I feel about building a company, he said enthusiastically. People think being a CEO is just about making money, but it's really about solving problems every single day. How do you motivate your team? How do you innovate in a competitive market? How do you balance growth with sustainability? Tell me about Park Industries, I asked. What made you want to start your own company? His expression shifted, becoming more serious but also more passionate. I came to New York from Seoul when I was 19 with almost nothing. My parents thought I was crazy. They wanted me to get a stable job, play it safe. But I had this vision for a tech consulting firm that could bridge the gap between traditional businesses and new technology. He took a sip of his coffee before continuing. The first 3 years were brutal. I worked 18-hour days, slept in my office more times than I can count, survived on ramen and determination. My parents barely spoke to me because they thought I was wasting my life. But I believed in what I was building. And now, I prompted. Now Park Industries has 45 employees, offices in New York and Los Angeles, and we've helped over 200 companies modernize their operations. My mother passed away 4 years ago, but before she did, she told me she was proud of me. That moment meant everything. There was real emotion in his voice when he mentioned his mother, a vulnerability that made him seem more human, more real. "I'm sorry about your mother," I said softly. "Thank you. She was an amazing woman. Losing her taught me that life is short, and we shouldn't waste time on things or people that don't matter." He looked at me intently. "That's partly why I'm here. I spent my 20s and early 30s building my company, and I was successful. But I've realized that success feels hollow when you have nobody to share it with." "Is that your way of saying you're lonely?" I asked with a small smile. He laughed, a genuine sound that I found myself wanting to hear again. "Is it that obvious?" "Yes, Emma, I'm lonely. I've been single for 3 years, by choice. After my last relationship ended badly, she wanted someone who worked less, who could give her more attention. I threw myself completely into work. But lately, I've been thinking about what I'm working so hard for. What's the point of building an empire if you're sitting in it alone?" His honesty was refreshing. No games, no pretense, just real conversation. We talked about everything. His love of old architecture and how he spent weekends exploring historic buildings in New York, my passion for mystery novels, and how I'd read over 300 in my lifetime, our shared belief that pineapple has no place on pizza, our different views on whether cats or dogs make better pets. "Cats are clearly superior," I argued playfully. "They're independent, clean, quiet." "Exactly," he interrupted. "Too independent. Dogs are loyal, enthusiastic, they're always happy to see you. They make you feel loved. Cats make you earn their affection, which makes it more meaningful," I countered. "We're going to have to agree to disagree on this one," he said, grinning. 4 hours passed without me noticing. The cafe began filling with the dinner crowd before I realized how long we'd been talking. "I should probably let you go," Daniel said reluctantly, checking his watch. "Though honestly, I could sit here talking to you all night." "This was really nice," I said, meaning it completely. "Thank you for suggesting it." As we stood to leave, he helped me with my coat, another old-fashioned gesture that felt natural coming from him. Outside the cafe, the evening air had turned cool. We stood awkwardly for a moment before he spoke. "Emma, I really enjoyed today. You're intelligent, funny, genuine, everything I was hoping for and more. I'd love to see you again if you're interested." "I'm interested," I said, unable to hide my smile. "How about dinner next Friday? There's this amazing Korean restaurant in Midtown I think you'd love." "That sounds perfect." He stepped closer, and for a moment I thought he might kiss me. Instead, he gently took my hand and brought it to his lips in a gesture so unexpectedly romantic it made my breath catch. "Until Friday then," he said softly. I practically floated home. Sarah was waiting at my apartment, demanding every detail. "He sounds perfect," she said after I'd recounted the entire date. "Successful but humble, charming but genuine. Emma, I think you might have found a good one." I wanted to believe her. I really did. The next 3 months were the most romantic of my life. Daniel pursued me with a focus and intensity that was both thrilling and overwhelming. Our second date at the Korean restaurant was even better than the first. He ordered in Korean, translating the menu for me and sharing stories about growing up in Seoul before moving to America. He remembered that I'd mentioned loving spicy food during our coffee date and ordered accordingly. "Try this," he said, offering me a bite of bulgogi from his chopsticks. The gesture was intimate, domestic, like we'd known each other for years instead of weeks. By our third date, a walk through Central Park followed by hot chocolate at a food truck, he reached for my hand naturally, and it felt right. By our fourth date, a Broadway show he'd somehow gotten impossible to get tickets for, he kissed me goodnight, and I felt my carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. "I'm falling for you, Emma," he whispered against my lips. "Is that crazy? We've only known each other a month." "If it's crazy, then we're both crazy," I whispered back. He integrated me into his life with seamless ease. He took me to business dinners where I met his colleagues and clients, all of whom treated him with respect and admiration. He introduced me to his world of charity galas and networking events, always making sure I felt included and comfortable. "This is Emma, my girlfriend," he'd say proudly, his hand on the small of my back. "She's a brilliant project manager. We met and I knew immediately she was special. I loved being his girlfriend, loved the way he made me feel cherished and valued. After Marcus had made me feel like I wasn't enough, Daniel made me feel like I was everything. He was thoughtful in ways that took my breath away. When I mentioned casually that I'd always wanted to try painting but never had time, he surprised me with a full set of art supplies and booked us a couples painting class. When I had a stressful week at work dealing with a difficult client, he showed up at my office with my favorite Thai food and a handwritten note that said, "You're stronger than any challenge. I believe in you." Sarah adored him too. When she finally met him at a dinner I organized with my closest friends, she texted me from the bathroom, "Emma, if you don't marry this man, I will. He's perfect." But there were small things, looking back, that should have raised red flags. He never invited me to his home. When I asked about it, he'd say, "My place is being renovated. It's a construction zone right now. I'd rather take you somewhere nice or stay at your place." His phone was always face down on tables, and he'd occasionally step away to take calls, saying it was work stuff, nothing urgent. And there were his Sunday afternoons. Every single Sunday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., he was unavailable. "Family obligations," he'd explain when I asked. "My father is elderly and lives in a care facility in New Jersey. I visit him every Sunday. It's important to me." It seemed reasonable, admirable even. A man who honored his family commitments. I met his business partner, Jason, a friendly man in his 40s who seemed genuinely happy Daniel had found someone. "He works too hard," Jason told me at a company party. "I'm glad he's finally making time for a personal life." "You're good for him, Emma." At the 2-month mark, Daniel took me to a rooftop restaurant with views of the Manhattan skyline. Over champagne and the most expensive meal I'd ever had, he gave me a gift. "I know it's early," he said, handing me a small velvet box, "but I wanted you to have this." Inside was a stunning diamond bracelet, delicate and elegant. "Daniel, this is too much," I started. "Nothing is too much for you," he interrupted, taking the bracelet and fastening it around my wrist. "You've made me happier than I've been in years, Emma. I'm falling in love with you." Actually, that's not accurate. I've already fallen. My eyes filled with tears. I've fallen too. We kissed as the city lights twinkled around us, and I thought I'd finally found my fairy tale ending. I should have known that fairy tales aren't real. It was a Tuesday afternoon in early December when my perfect world began to crumble. Sarah and I had decided to take a long lunch break to do some early holiday shopping. We were at the Westfield World Trade Center, wandering through stores and laughing at ridiculous gift ideas, when Sarah suddenly grabbed my arm. "Emma," she said urgently, pulling me behind a pillar. "Don't look now, but isn't that Daniel?" My heart leapt. Maybe he was shopping for me. Maybe I could surprise him. I peeked around the pillar, ready to call out to him. The words died in my throat. Daniel was there, about 50 feet away in the open courtyard area. But he wasn't alone. He was holding the hand of a little girl who couldn't have been more than 6 years old. She was adorable, with pigtails and a bright pink jacket, and she was chattering animatedly while Daniel listened with a smile I recognized, the same warm, attentive expression he gave me when I was excited about something. "Maybe it's a niece," Sarah whispered, but her voice was uncertain. I watched, frozen, as Daniel knelt down to tie the little girl's shoe. The gesture was so tender, so practiced, so familiar. This wasn't the awkward interaction of an uncle who saw his niece occasionally. This was a father who tied his daughter's shoes every day. Then a woman approached them. She was stunning, elegant in a way I could never be, wearing a cream-colored designer coat and carrying shopping bags from expensive stores. Her dark hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She looked like she belonged in a magazine. She said something to Daniel, and he stood up, putting his arm around her waist in a gesture of casual intimacy. She laughed at something, leaning into him slightly. The little girl grabbed both their hands, and they walked together toward a children's store, looking like a picture-perfect family straight out of a catalog. "Emma!" Sarah's voice seemed far away. "Emma, breathe. You need to breathe." I realized I'd been holding my breath, my chest tight with something I couldn't name. Shock? Betrayal? Confusion? "There has to be an explanation," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. "Maybe that's his sister and his niece. Maybe." "Emma, that didn't look like siblings," Sarah said gently. The way he touched her waist, the way they moved together, that looked like a couple. I couldn't move. I stood there, partially hidden by the pillar, watching the store and trance they'd disappeared into. Part of me wanted to march over there and demand answers. Part of me wanted to run away and pretend I'd never seen anything. Part of me wanted to believe there was an innocent explanation. "Let's go," I finally said. "I can't. I need to leave." Sarah didn't argue. She guided me out of the mall and into a cab, her arm around my shoulders as I sat in stunned silence. Back at my apartment, she made tea while I sat on my couch, staring at nothing. "You have to ask him," Sarah said, setting a mug in front of me. "You can't just ignore what you saw. What if there's an explanation?" "Then he'll give you one," Sarah said reasonably. "But you need to know the truth. You deserve to know who you're dating." That night, when Daniel called for our usual evening conversation, I almost didn't answer. But I needed to hear his voice, needed to gauge his honesty. "Hey, beautiful," he said warmly. "How was your day?" "It was fine," I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "Daniel, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Anything." I took a deep breath. "Do you have children?" There was a pause. It lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. In that silence, I heard everything I needed to know. "No," he finally said. His voice was smooth, controlled. "No, I don't have children." "Why do you ask?" "Just curious," I said, my heart sinking. "You never talk about whether you want kids someday." "It's not the right time in my life for that conversation," he said easily. "Too easily. I'm focused on building my company, on building a future. But when I'm with you, Emma, I can imagine everything. Marriage, family, the whole package. You make me want things I haven't wanted in years." Every word sounded sincere. If I hadn't seen him with my own eyes, if I didn't know what I knew, I would have believed him completely. "That's sweet," I managed to say. We talked for a few more minutes before I made an excuse to hang up. Then I sat in my dark apartment and cried, because somewhere deep down I knew. The man I was falling in love with was lying to me. The question was, what else was he lying about? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at my ceiling, my mind replaying the scene from the mall over and over. The way Daniel had smiled at that little girl. The casual intimacy with that beautiful woman. The practiced ease of a family unit. And then his voice on the phone. "No, I don't have children." A lie. A deliberate, calculated lie. By 3 a.m., I'd made a decision. I needed to know the truth. I started with a simple Google search. Daniel Park, CEO, Park Industries. Pages of results appeared. Business articles about his company's growth. Press releases about new contracts. Industry awards and recognition. Professional headshots showing Daniel in sharp suits, looking every bit the successful CEO he claimed to be. Then I found the society pages. The first photo stopped my heart. It was from a charity gala 2 years ago. Daniel stood in a tuxedo, looking handsome and confident. Next to him was the woman from the mall, the elegant, beautiful woman I'd seen him with. They stood close together, his hand on her lower back, both smiling at the camera. The caption read, "Daniel Park, CEO of Park Industries, with his wife Jennifer at the annual Children's Hospital fundraiser." The couple donated $50,000 to support the hospital's new pediatric wing. His wife. I felt like I couldn't breathe. With shaking hands, I clicked through more images. There were dozens. Daniel and Jennifer at a business awards ceremony 3 years ago. Daniel and Jennifer at a New Year's Eve gala. Daniel and Jennifer cutting a ribbon at a grand opening. And then I found their wedding photos. 8 years ago, Daniel had married Jennifer Kim in what looked like an extravagant ceremony at the Plaza Hotel. The photos were gorgeous. Jennifer in a stunning white gown, Daniel looking at her like she was his entire world. Their first dance, cutting the cake, surrounded by hundreds of well-dressed guests. I scrolled frantically, looking for any indication of a divorce, a separation, anything that might explain this. But the photos continued. Year after year, Daniel and Jennifer appeared at events together. The timeline didn't stop. It continued right up until 6 months ago. Then I found photos that included the little girl, Sophie, their daughter, Sophie Park, born 6 years ago according to a birth announcement I found in the archives of a Korean-American newspaper. There were photos of Daniel holding newborn Sophie, Daniel teaching Sophie to ride a bike, Daniel at Sophie's kindergarten graduation, family photos from vacations, Disney World, Hawaii, skiing in Aspen. This wasn't a divorced man. This wasn't an estranged father who occasionally saw his child. This was a married father living a full family life while simultaneously dating me. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. Sarah came over the moment I called her at 6 a.m. She found me on my bathroom floor, laptop open, surrounded by printed photos I'd obsessively printed out in my rage and grief. "Oh, Emma," she whispered, kneeling beside me and pulling me into her arms. "He lied about everything." I sobbed. "Everything, Sarah. He's married. He has a daughter. He's not separated or divorced or anything. He's just a liar, a cheater. And I was so stupid." "Stop," Sarah said firmly. "You are not stupid. He's a manipulator. He's clearly very good at lying. This is not your fault, but it felt like my fault. I should have demanded to see his home. I should have questioned why he was always so available to me but mysteriously unavailable on Sundays. I should have noticed something was off. What do? I asked helplessly. "You confront him," Sarah said. "You tell him you know the truth, and then you walk away with your head held high." "But what if?" "No what ifs," Sarah interrupted. "Emma, he doesn't deserve your compassion or your second-guessing. He made you the other woman without your knowledge or consent. He stole 3 months of your life with his lies. You owe him nothing except the truth, that you know who he really is." She was right, but knowing she was right didn't make the pain any less. I waited 3 days before confronting Daniel. 3 days of agony, of pretending everything was normal when he called, of making excuses not to see him in person because I knew I'd break down. I needed time to plan what I'd say, to steel myself against his inevitable charm and excuses, to prepare for the moment when I'd have to walk away from the man I thought I loved. On Friday evening, I texted him, "Can we meet a chapter and verse tomorrow at 2 p.m.? We need to talk." He responded immediately, "Of course. Is everything okay? You've seemed distant this week." "We'll talk tomorrow," I replied. That night, I practiced in front of my mirror. I practiced keeping my voice steady, my emotions controlled. I practiced not crying, not yelling, not giving him the satisfaction of seeing how much he'd hurt me. Saturday arrived gray and cold, matching my mood. I dressed carefully, not for him, but for me. I wanted to feel strong, put together, in control. I wore black pants, a burgundy blouse, and a leather jacket Sarah had bought me for my birthday. War paint, she called it. I arrived at chapter and verse at exactly 2 p.m. Daniel was already there, sitting at the same table where we'd had our first date. He smiled when he saw me, that warm, genuine smile that had made me fall for him. "Emma," he said, standing to greet me. "I ordered your usual." "Sit down, Daniel," I said quietly. Something in my tone made his smile falter. He sat slowly, uncertainty crossing his face for the first time since I'd known him. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table between us, the screen showing a photo I'd found, Daniel, Jennifer, and Sophie at Sophie's 6th birthday party 3 months ago. All 3 of them wore matching party hats and huge smiles. The color drained from Daniel's face as he stared at the image. For a long moment, he said nothing. I watched emotions flicker across his face, shock, panic, calculation. "Emma, I can explain," he finally started. "Explain what?" I interrupted, my voice shaking despite my attempts to stay calm. "Explain how you've been lying to me for 3 months. Explain your wife Jennifer. Your 6-year-old daughter Sophie. Explain which part exactly." "It's not what it looks like," he said, reaching for my hand across the table. I pulled away like his touch burned. It's not what it looks like. Really? Because it looks like you're a married man with a family who's been pretending to be single to date me. What other interpretation could there possibly be? My marriage is complicated, he said, his voice dropping to that earnest, sincere tone that had fooled me for months. Jennifer and I, we're not really together anymore. We're basically just roommates. We stay together for Sophie, but there's no love there. No intimacy. We're married on paper only. Is that what you tell all your girlfriends? I asked bitterly. He flinched. You're not just a girlfriend, Emma. What we have is real. I'm falling in love with you. I was going to tell you about Jennifer. I just needed to find the right time. The right time? I laughed, a harsh sound that made a couple at a nearby table glance over. When exactly was the right time, Daniel? Before our first kiss? Before I fell in love with you? Before you gave me a diamond bracelet and told me you wanted a future with me? When was this mythical right time? I know I should have told you sooner, he admitted, and there were actual tears in his eyes. I know I messed up. But please, Emma, please let me explain the full situation. My marriage has been over for years. Jennifer knows I'm not happy. We're working toward divorce. It's just complicated with Sophie involved. Stop lying. I slammed my hand on the table, making the coffee cups rattle. I've seen the photos, Daniel. Photos from 6 months ago of you and Jennifer looking very much like a happy couple. Photos of family vacations and birthday parties and holidays. That doesn't look like a dead marriage. That looks like a family. Tears were streaming down my face now, all my practiced composure crumbling. How could you? I whispered. How could you make me fall in love with you when you knew it was all a lie? How could you let me believe we had a future? Do you have any idea what you've done to me? Emma, please. He stood up, trying to come around the table to me. Don't. I stood quickly, grabbing my bag. Don't touch me. Don't call me. Don't text me. I never want to see you again. Emma, wait. What we have is real. I love you. I turned back to look at him one last time. You don't love me, Daniel. You don't even know what love is. Love is honest. Love is truthful. Love doesn't manipulate and deceive. You love the thrill of having something secret, something forbidden. But you don't love me. Because if you did, you never could have lied to me the way you did. I walked out of chapter and verse with my head held high, not looking back even as I heard him call my name. But the moment I turned the corner and was out of sight, I collapsed against a building and sobbed. Sarah found me there 20 minutes later and took me home. The next 2 weeks were the darkest period of my life since my breakup with Marcus. Actually, this was worse. Because with Marcus, I'd known who he was. With Daniel, I'd been deceived about everything. I called in sick to work for 3 days straight, unable to face the world. I lay in bed, alternating between crying and numbness, unable to eat or sleep properly. Sarah stayed with me, taking time off work to make sure I wasn't alone. She brought me soup I couldn't eat, put on movies I didn't watch, and held me while I cried. I'm so stupid, I kept saying. How did I not see it? How did I not know? Because he's a skilled liar, Sarah said firmly, stroking my hair. Emma, this is what manipulators do. They're good at it. They make you believe exactly what they want you to believe. This is not your fault. But it felt like my fault. I replayed every moment of our relationship, seeing red flags everywhere now that I knew the truth. The phone always being face down. The Sunday unavailability. Never seeing his home. The way he'd pause before answering certain questions. How had I been so blind? My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Daniel called and texted constantly. Please, Emma, just let me explain properly. You don't understand the full situation with Jennifer. What we have is real. Don't throw it away. I'm leaving her. I'm talking to a divorce lawyer. Give me a chance to prove that I'm serious about you. I miss you. I miss your laugh, your smile, the way you make me feel. Please answer. I'm standing outside your building. Please just give me 5 minutes. That last one sent me into a panic. I looked out my window and sure enough, there was Daniel on the sidewalk, staring up at my building. I'm calling the police, Sarah said immediately, pulling out her phone. No, wait, I said, though my hands were shaking. Let me handle this. I called him from my window, watching as he answered immediately. Emma, I knew you'd answer. Please, just come down. Leave. I said firmly. Leave right now, or I'm calling the police and reporting you for harassment. Emma, please, I just need to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you, Daniel. And you have nothing to say that I want to hear. Go home to your wife and daughter. The family you forgot to mention. The family you were perfectly happy to betray for whatever game you were playing with me. It wasn't a game. I love you. You don't know what love is, I said and ended the call. I watched from my window as he stood there for another 10 minutes before finally leaving. That's it, Sarah said. We're blocking his number. But he found other ways. Emails came to my work address, long messages explaining his situation and begging for another chance. Flowers were delivered to my apartment with cards that read, I'm sorry, and please forgive me, and you're the only woman I've ever truly loved. I threw every bouquet in the trash. Then, gifts started arriving. A first edition of my favorite mystery novel. Tickets to a show I'd mentioned wanting to see. A painting from an artist I admired. Each gift made me angrier than the last. Did he think he could buy his way back into my life? Did he think expensive presents would make up for months of lies? I donated everything to charity without opening most of it. By the end of the second week, I finally felt strong enough to go back to work. My boss, Linda, had been understanding when I'd called in sick, and she called me into her office my first day back. Emma, are you okay? She asked gently. You don't have to tell me details, but I want to make sure you're all right. I'm managing, I said, appreciating her concern. It was just a personal situation that I needed time to process. Well, we're glad you're back. But if you need anything... She didn't get to finish because her assistant knocked on the door. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a Daniel Park in the lobby asking to see Emma. He says it's urgent. My stomach dropped. Tell security to escort him out. I said immediately. I don't want to see him. Linda looked at me with understanding. Consider it done. But when I went to the lobby to make sure he'd left, Daniel was there, being held back by 2 security guards as he tried to reach me. Emma, please, he shouted across the lobby. Just 5 minutes. Let me explain. Everyone in the lobby was staring. My colleagues, clients, visitors, all witnessing the scene. Sir, you need to leave, one security guard said firmly. Emma, I left Jennifer. I'm staying at a hotel. I did it for us. Please, just talk to me. I felt humiliated, exposed, furious. Get him out of here, I said to the guards. As they escorted Daniel out, he kept calling back to me. I love you, Emma. I'll prove it to you. I'll do whatever it takes. I went back to my office and cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. When I finally composed myself and returned to my desk, I found whispers following me everywhere. By the end of the day, I was sure everyone in the office knew about my messy personal life. That evening, Sarah came over with wine and determination. We're getting a restraining order, she announced. This has gone too far. He's harassing you at work now. This needs to stop. I knew she was right. Daniel's behavior had crossed from desperate into stalking territory. The next day, I went to the police station and filed for a restraining order. The officer who took my statement was a woman in her 40s named Officer Rodriguez. She listened patiently as I explained the situation, the deception, the harassment, the workplace incident. We see cases like this more often than you'd think, she said sympathetically. Men who feel entitled to a woman's time and attention, who can't accept rejection. The restraining order will legally require him to stay away from you, your home, and your workplace. If he violates it, he can be arrested. How long does the process take? I asked. You'll have a hearing in about 2 weeks. He'll be notified and can contest it, but based on what you've told me, I don't think a judge will have any problem granting it. I left the police station feeling both relief and dread. Relief that there would be legal protection, dread about the hearing and having to face Daniel again. 2 days later, Daniel was served with a restraining order at his office. I know this because I received an angry call from an unknown number that afternoon. Emma, a restraining order? Really? It was his voice, tight with anger and hurt. After everything we meant to each other, you're treating me like a criminal? You are harassing me, I said firmly. And yes, after you lied to me for 3 months and stalked me when I ended things, I'm protecting myself legally. Don't call this number again. I hung up and blocked that number too. Then, On a Friday evening exactly 3 weeks after I had confronted Daniel at the cafe, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole cautiously and saw a woman I didn't recognize. When I opened the door, keeping the chain lock on, I found myself face to face with Jennifer Park. She was even more beautiful in person than in photos, but up close I could see the tired lines around her eyes, the sadness in her expression. "Emma Chun," she asked quietly. "Yes," I said warily. "I'm Jennifer Park. I think we should talk." Every instinct told me to slam the door. This woman was Daniel's wife, the person he betrayed to be with me, but something in her eyes, not anger, but a deep, weary sadness, made me hesitate. "Why?" I asked. "Because you deserve to know the truth," she said simply. "The whole truth, not just Daniel's version of it." Against my better judgment, I unlocked the chain and let her in. We sat in my living room in awkward silence for a moment. She looked around at my small but cozy apartment, so different from the luxury she probably lived in. "I'm not here to fight with you," she finally said. "And I'm not here to blame you. I found out about your relationship with my husband a week after you ended things with him. He left his phone unlocked, and I saw the messages he'd been sending you. I didn't know he was married," I said immediately, needing her to understand. "I swear if I had known—" "I believe you," she interrupted gently. "You're not the first woman Daniel has had an affair with, Emma. You're just the latest." The room seemed to tilt. "What?" Jennifer's smile was bitter, broken. "My husband is a serial cheater. There was Melissa, an administrative assistant at a client company, about 2 years ago. Rachel, a marketing consultant, before her. Angela, someone he met at a conference. And probably others I don't know about. He's very good at keeping his affairs secret." I felt physically ill. "How long has this been going on?" "Since before Sophie was born, I suspect," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "Maybe even since the beginning of our marriage. I don't know anymore. Each time I find out, he promises it's the last time. He cries. He begs forgiveness. He swears he'll change. And I believe him because I want to believe him. Because I have a daughter and a life built with this man. Because admitting the truth means admitting I've wasted 8 years on someone who doesn't know how to be faithful." Tears were running down her face now, and I found myself crying too, for her, for me, for all the women Daniel had lied to. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because you should know who you were dealing with," she said, wiping her eyes. "And because I'm finally done. I'm filing for divorce. I've contacted a lawyer. But I wanted you to understand something. What Daniel does, it's not about the women. It's not about you being inadequate or me being inadequate. It's about him. He's addicted to the thrill of conquest, to the validation of having someone new fall for him. And when that thrill fades or when things get complicated, he moves on to the next woman." "Does Sophie know?" I asked, thinking of that little girl I'd seen at the mall. "Not yet," Jennifer said sadly. "She's only 6. But I can't raise her thinking this is what love looks like. I can't let her grow up believing it's normal for her father to betray her mother over and over again." She stood to leave, but paused at the door. "I hope you find someone worthy of you, Emma. Someone honest and faithful. Someone who doesn't play games with people's hearts." "I hope you find that too," I said sincerely. After she left, I sat in my apartment for a long time, processing everything. I wasn't special. I wasn't the great love that made Daniel want to change his life. I was just another woman in a pattern, another conquest, another notch in his belt. And somehow, that made it easier to let go. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for a Wednesday in late December. I'd never been to court before, and walking into that sterile courtroom filled me with anxiety. Daniel was already there with his lawyer, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. When Daniel saw me, his face lit up with desperate hope. "Emma," he started to say, standing up. "Mr. Park, sit down," the judge said firmly. "You're not to approach the petitioner. My lawyer, a woman named Rebecca Chun, no relation, whom Jennifer's attorney had recommended, presented our case efficiently. The documented harassment, phone calls, texts, emails, the workplace incident, the showing up at my apartment, the deception about his marital status, the pattern of behavior that made me fear for my safety. Daniel's lawyer tried to argue that it was just a lover's quarrel, that Daniel was simply trying to salvage a relationship. Your Honor, Rebecca countered, my client did not want to salvage anything. She clearly ended the relationship upon discovering Mr. Park had lied about being married. His continued contact against her explicit wishes constitutes harassment. The judge reviewed the evidence, screenshots of messages, photos from the workplace security cameras, statements from my building's doorman about Daniel showing up repeatedly. Mr. Park, the judge said, looking at Daniel sternly, do you dispute that you are married? No, Your Honor, but I'm in the process of getting divorced. Did you tell Miss Chin you were married when you began a relationship with her? Daniel hesitated. No, but... And did she ask you to stop contacting her? Yes, but I was trying to explain. Mr. Park, Miss Chin has the right to end a relationship and to not be contacted afterward. Your persistence is not romantic, it's harassment. The judge signed the order. You are to have no contact with Miss Chun for 1 year. No calls, no texts, no emails, no showing up at her residence or workplace. If you violate this order, you will be arrested. Do you understand? But Your Honor, if I could just explain. Do you understand the terms of this order? The judge repeated firmly. Yes, Your Honor, Daniel finally said, his jaw tight. I left the courtroom feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. It was finally legally over. But 2 days later, the flowers started arriving again. This time, they were sent to my office from an anonymous sender. Then gifts began appearing on my doorstep, also anonymously. He's violating the restraining order, Sarah said angrily when I showed her the latest delivery. Call the police. But proving it was Daniel was difficult without a name on the orders. He'd gotten smart, using cash and anonymous delivery services. Then, one evening, I received a call from a blocked number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Emma! It was Daniel's voice, slurred slightly. I miss you so much. Everything is falling apart without you. You're violating a court order, I said. I'm recording this call, and I'm reporting it to the police. I don't care, he said, and I could hear the desperation and possibly alcohol in his voice. My life is a mess. Jennifer's divorce attorney is destroying me. I lost clients because of a scandal. My board is talking about pushing me out. And it's all because of you. Because of me? I said, anger flaring. You did this to yourself, Daniel. You lied, you cheated, you manipulated people. This is the consequence of your actions. I loved you, he said, and there were tears in his voice. I really did love you, Emma. You were different from the others. There it is, I said coldly. The others. I was just one in a series, Daniel. Jennifer told me everything. Melissa, Rachel, Angela, and who knows how many more. I wasn't special. I was just convenient. That's not true. What I felt for you was real. Stop calling me. Stop sending gifts. Stay away from me, or I will make sure you go to jail. And trust me, a CEO with a criminal record won't help your company or your custody battle. I hung up and immediately called the police to report the violation. They assured me they'd follow up. 2 days later, Daniel was arrested for violating the restraining order. He spent a night in jail before being released with a stern warning from the judge and a more stringent order. Absolutely no contact, direct or indirect, with penalties including up to 6 months in jail for the next violation. It was humiliating for him. The business news websites ran stories about tech CEO arrested for violating restraining order. His professional reputation took another hit. But finally, blessedly, the contact stopped. 3 weeks after Daniel's arrest, I received a call from attorney Lisa Wong, the lawyer handling Jennifer's divorce case. Miss Chun, I hope I'm not intruding, she said professionally. Mrs. Park mentioned you were one of the women her husband had an affair with. I'm calling because we're building a case for fault-based divorce due to repeated infidelity, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to provide testimony. I hesitated. Getting more involved in Daniel and Jennifer's divorce felt like stepping back into a nightmare I was trying to escape. I understand your reluctance, Attorney Wong continued, but I think you should know that you're not the only woman we've identified. We found evidence of 4 other affairs during the marriage, all with women who believed Daniel was single. This is a pattern of behavior, Miss Chin, and patterns need to be exposed. 4 others? I repeated, my stomach churning. Yes. And those are just the ones we found evidence of. We suspect there may be more. I thought about those other women, about how they must have felt when they discovered the truth, about the pain and betrayal and self-doubt they probably experienced, just like I had. What would I need to do? I asked. Over the next week, I provided extensive documentation to Attorney Wong's office. Text messages where Daniel claimed to be single. Photos from our dates at events where he'd introduced me as his girlfriend. Emails where he'd talked about our future together. My own written statement detailing how he'd lied about his marital status and what happened when I discovered the truth. The other women did the same. Attorney Wong compiled everything into a comprehensive case that painted a damning picture of Daniel Park's double life. I never met the other women, but Attorney Wong shared some of their stories, with permission. Melissa, 28, an administrative assistant, had dated Daniel for 4 months. He told her he was divorced and that his ex-wife had custody of his daughter. She discovered the truth when Jennifer showed up at her apartment. Rachel, 34, a marketing consultant, had been with Daniel for 6 months. He told her he was widowed, that his wife had died in a car accident, and that he was raising his daughter alone while building his company. She found out the truth when she saw him with Jennifer at a charity event. Angela, 31, a conference organizer, had been his affair for 3 months. He told her he was single and child-free, focusing entirely on his career. She discovered the truth through a mutual business contact who mentioned Daniel's lovely wife. Each woman had been chosen carefully, women in positions where they wouldn't likely cross paths with his real life, women who trusted easily, women who wanted to believe in love and second chances. Daniel was methodical in his deception. He had patterns, scripts almost. The same lines about being alone, about finding someone special, about building a future together. We were all just characters in the same play, saying the same lines he'd written for us. The divorce hearing was set for mid-January. Jennifer had requested I attend to provide support, though I wouldn't have to testify publicly since my written statement would be entered as evidence. I almost said no. I wanted to put this entire nightmare behind me, to move forward and forget Daniel Park ever existed. But then I thought about all those other women, about Sophie who would grow up with divorced parents because her father couldn't keep his promises, about Jennifer who'd wasted 8 years on a man who betrayed her repeatedly. I decided to go. The courtroom was more formal than the restraining order hearing. This was family court, and the judge was a stern-looking woman in her 60s who'd clearly seen every type of marital drama imaginable. Daniel sat at one table with his attorney, looking haggard. He'd lost weight, I noticed, and there were dark circles under his eyes. For a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Then I remembered all the lies and the sympathy evaporated. Jennifer sat at the other table with Attorney Wong, looking determined but sad. She wore a simple black dress and minimal makeup, and when she glanced at me in the gallery, she gave a small, grateful nod. The hearing began with procedural matters, division of assets, custody arrangements for Sophie. Daniel's attorney argued for joint physical custody, but Jennifer's attorney countered with Daniel's unstable behavior, the restraining order violation, the arrest. Your Honor, Attorney Wong said, standing with perfect posture and commanding attention. My client is not seeking to deny Mr. Park access to his daughter. However, given his recent behavior, harassment of one of his affair partners resulting in a restraining order and arrest, we believe supervised visitation is appropriate until Mr. Park demonstrates stability. Then came the evidence of infidelity. Attorney Wong presented it systematically, 5 documented affairs over 6 years of marriage. Evidence that Daniel had used marital funds to finance these relationships. Hotel rooms charged to credit cards he shared with Jennifer, expensive gifts that never came home, restaurant bills from establishments he'd never been to with his wife. She showed the court photographs of Daniel at events with Jennifer while simultaneously carrying on relationships with other women. Text messages to 3 different women on the same day, all using similar language about being lonely and wanting real connection. The most devastating presentation was a timeline. Attorney Wong had created a chart showing all 5 relationships plotted against significant family events. Angela affair overlapped with Jennifer's high-risk pregnancy with Sophie Melissa affair, during Sophie's 4th birthday year Rachel affair, while Jennifer was caring for her dying mother an unnamed woman, during Sophie's hospitalization for pneumonia, during what should have been their 8th anniversary year. Your Honor, Attorney Wong said, her voice sharp with controlled anger. Mr. Park didn't just cheat on his wife. He actively deceived multiple women, using company resources and marital funds to maintain multiple relationships simultaneously. He lied to each of these women about his marital status, and he did this during some of the most vulnerable moments in his family's life. Daniel's attorney tried to argue that his client's personal life shouldn't impact financial settlements, that mistakes in marriage don't warrant punitive measures. But Attorney Wong was prepared. This isn't about punishing Mr. Park for having an affair. This is about documenting a pattern of financial deception, emotional abuse, and breach of trust that directly impacts the division of assets. My client supported Mr. Park while he built his company. She managed their home and raised their child while he worked long hours. She trusted him, and he systematically violated that trust while using marital resources to do so. Then came Jennifer's testimony. She took the stand with quiet dignity, her voice steady despite the painful nature of what she was sharing. "I gave him everything," she said, looking directly at the judge rather than at Daniel. "I gave up my own career aspirations to support his business. I took care of our home and our daughter. I believed him when he said business trips and late nights were necessary for success. I believed him when he said he loved me, loved our family." Her voice cracked slightly, and all along, he was living a completely different life. Not just once, not just one mistake, but over and over again, with at least 5 different women that we know of, each time telling them the same lies, making them the same promises he'd made to me. "When did you first discover your husband's infidelity?" the judge asked. "About 4 years ago, I found messages on his phone. He was having an affair with someone named Angela. When I confronted him, he cried. He begged forgiveness. He swore it was a one-time mistake, that he'd been stressed and made a horrible error in judgment. He promised to go to counseling, to work on our marriage. I believed him because I wanted to believe him, because we had a young daughter and a life together. And were there subsequent affairs? Yes. I discovered evidence of another 1-2 years later. And again he promised to change, but the affairs continued. Each time I found out, there were tears and apologies and promises. Each time, I chose to stay for Sophie's sake, until I couldn't anymore. What changed? The judge asked gently. Jennifer looked at me briefly before answering. I realized that staying was teaching my daughter that this is what love looks like, that it's normal for someone to betray you repeatedly and for you to accept it. I couldn't let her grow up thinking that's acceptable. Daniel's attorney tried cross-examination, suggesting Jennifer had known about the affairs and accepted them, that she'd benefited from the lifestyle Daniel's income provided and was now seeking revenge. Jennifer's response was calm but cutting. I didn't know the extent of my husband's deception. And yes, I benefited from his income, because I gave up my career to support his. That's not revenge, that's restitution for 8 years of my life spent building a marriage that my husband was actively destroying. The judge called for a brief recess. When we returned, Daniel's attorney requested he be allowed to make a statement. Daniel stood, looking at Jennifer with what seemed like genuine remorse. Jennifer, I'm sorry. I know those words don't mean much now, but I am truly sorry. I was selfish and thoughtless. I hurt you, I hurt Sophie, and I hurt the women I became involved with. I don't have a good excuse. I was weak and I made terrible choices. He paused, seeming to struggle with emotion. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking for a chance to still be a father to Sophie. To prove that even though I failed as a husband, I won't fail as a father. It was a good speech. Contrite, humble, focused on Sophie. But I noticed he didn't actually admit to lying, didn't acknowledge the systematic deception, didn't take full responsibility for the pattern of behavior. The judge deliberated for less than 10 minutes before delivering her ruling. Mr. Park, she began, you have systematically deceived your wife and multiple other women over the course of several years. You used marital assets to finance extramarital relationships. You lied under oath about your marital status to at least one of these women, which could constitute fraud. She shuffled her papers. This court finds in favor of Mrs. Park in the matter of fault-based divorce. Mrs. Park will receive primary physical custody of the minor child, Sophie Park. Mr. Park will have supervised visitation every other weekend and 1 evening per week, supervision to be reevaluated after Mr. Park completes a minimum of 6 months of counseling. Daniel's face went pale. The judge continued. Regarding division of assets, Mrs. Park will receive the marital home, 70% of shared assets including retirement accounts and investment portfolios, and substantial alimony for a period of 8 years, 1 year for each year of marriage. Mr. Park's behavior constitutes egregious violation of marital trust and misuse of marital funds, which this court takes into account in the division. Your Honor, Daniel's attorney started to object. I'm not finished, the judge said sharply. Mr. Park, you are also ordered to reimburse Mrs. Park for all marital funds used in pursuit of extramarital relationships. Your company's financial records will be reviewed to document these expenses. Additionally, you are to have no contact with any of the women you had affairs with. If you violate this order, you will face contempt charges. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. This hearing is concluded. As people began filing out, Jennifer turned to me. Her eyes were bright with tears, but there was also relief in her expression. Thank you, she said quietly. Thank you for being brave enough to come forward, for helping me finally break free. Thank you for telling me the truth, I replied, for helping me understand it wasn't about me. We hugged briefly, 2 women bound by the damage the same man had done, finding unexpected solidarity and shared pain. As I left the courtroom, I saw Daniel still sitting at his table, his head in his hands. For a moment, our eyes met. I saw regret there, maybe even genuine remorse. But it was too late for regret. The damage was done. The divorce proceedings made waves far beyond Jennifer and Daniel's personal life. Within days of the hearing, business publications picked up the story. Tech CEO's messy divorce reveals pattern of deception, read one headline. Park Industries, CEO faces allegations of using company funds for personal affairs, read another. The scandal affected Daniel's professional life in ways I hadn't anticipated. Several of Park Industries' major clients quietly withdrew their contracts, uncomfortable with the negative publicity and questions about Daniel's judgment and ethics. If he lies to his wife, how can we trust him with our business? One client was quoted anonymously in a Business Journal article. The company's board of directors called an emergency meeting. While I wasn't privy to the details, Sarah, who worked in the same industry circles, heard through the grapevine that it had been contentious. They're considering forcing him out, she told me over coffee one Saturday. Not just because of the scandal, but because of the financial implications. Using company resources for personal affairs could constitute fraud. The board's worried about lawsuits. I felt a complex mix of emotions hearing this. Part of me felt satisfied that there were real consequences for Daniel's actions. But part of me also felt a twinge of something that wasn't quite sympathy, but perhaps recognition of a human life unraveling. Do you feel bad for him? Sarah asked, reading my expression. No, I said after thinking about it. I feel sad that it came to this. Sad that he had everything. A wife who loved him, a beautiful daughter, a successful company, and he threw it all away for what? An ego boost. The thrill of conquest. It's tragic, but it's not my tragedy. Meanwhile, the 5 of us women who'd been involved with Daniel formed an unexpected bond. Attorney Wong had put us in touch with each other, with everyone's permission, and we'd created a private chat group. It started as a support system, a safe place to process our experiences. But it evolved into something more positive, a reminder that we were survivors, not victims. Melissa shared her story first. I was so angry at myself for not seeing the signs. But talking to all of you, I realized there weren't obvious signs to see. He was careful, methodical. This was a practiced deception. Rachel added, I kept thinking I was stupid for believing him. But we're not stupid. We're trusting. And trusting isn't a flaw. It's a strength that he exploited. Angela, who was the quietest of the group, finally opened up. My therapist helped me understand something important. His line says everything about his character and nothing about our worth. We didn't fail at relationships. He failed at being a decent human being. We shared our healing journeys, therapy appointments, new hobbies taken up, lessons learned about red flags and boundaries. We celebrated small victories, like the first time each of us went on a date with someone new, or the first day we didn't think about Daniel at all. Sarah organized an in-person meeting at my apartment. She called it the Daniel Park Survivors Club first annual meeting. To surviving, she toasted with wine when all 5 of us were gathered. To learning what we deserve. To never settling for less than honesty and respect again. To finding the real thing someday, Melissa added. To being stronger than we ever thought we could be, Rachel said. We clinked glasses. 5 women who'd been strangers brought together by one man's deception, now bonded by shared experience and mutual support. Over wine and takeout, we shared more stories. Not just about Daniel, but about our lives, our dreams, our fears. It was cathartic and empowering. Can I tell you all something? Angela said as the evening wound down. When this first happened, when I found out the truth, I felt so alone. So humiliated. Like I was the only person stupid enough to be fooled like this. But being here with all of you, hearing your stories, I don't feel alone anymore. And I don't feel stupid. I feel like we were all victims of a very skilled manipulator. And now we're all survivors of that manipulation. We all nodded, understanding completely. I propose we make this an annual thing, Sarah suggested. Once a year, we get together, catch up, remind ourselves how far we've come. Everyone agreed enthusiastically. As the evening ended and everyone left, Melissa pulled me aside. Thank you for organizing this, Emma. Or thanks Sarah, I guess. This has been so healing. For me too, I admitted. I think we all needed this. That night, I realized something important. Daniel had taken months of my life, had broken my heart and my trust. But he'd also inadvertently given me something valuable. Connection with 4 incredible women who understood my pain and my healing journey in a way no one else could. It didn't make what he'd done okay, but it helped transform the narrative from one of pure victimization to one of resilience and growth. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was finally beginning to feel like myself again. Therapy had helped tremendously. Dr. Patricia Martinez, my therapist, had been instrumental in helping me process the betrayal and rebuild my ability to trust. What Daniel did wasn't your fault, she told me in one of our early sessions. Trusting someone isn't naive, it's human. He exploited that trust, but that says everything about his character and nothing about yours. She'd helped me identify the red flags I'd missed, not so I could blame myself, but so I could recognize them in the future. The evasiveness about his home, the carefully controlled information, the too perfect presentation of his life. Healthy people are honest about their flaws, Dr. Martinez explained. They don't pretend to be perfect. When someone seems too good to be true, it's worth asking questions. I threw myself into work, finding that the focus and challenge helped me heal. My boss Linda noticed my renewed dedication and promoted me to senior project manager with a significant raise and more responsibility. You've always been talented, she told me when offering the promotion. But over the past few months, I've seen you become truly confident in your abilities. Whatever you've been through, it's made you stronger. I also rediscovered hobbies I'd abandoned during my relationship with Daniel. I joined a book club and actually attended the meetings instead of just reading the books. I started painting again, taking a weekend watercolor class where I was terrible but happy. I trained for and completed a half marathon, surprising myself with my own endurance. I even adopted a cat from a local shelter, a gray tabby named Machi who had anxiety issues and needed a patient owner. Sarah joked that Machi and I were perfect for each other, 2 anxious beings helping each other heal. Dating felt impossible at first. The thought of trusting someone new, of being vulnerable again, terrified me. But Sarah, persistent as always, eventually wore me down. Not all men are like Daniel, she insisted. And you deserve to find someone who treats you the way you deserve to be treated. Just one date, with my colleague Mark. He's a genuinely good guy. That's what I thought about Daniel, I said bitterly. Mark is nothing like Daniel, Sarah said firmly. He's a high school teacher, not a CEO. He drives a 10-year-old Honda, not a luxury car. He lives in a modest apartment in Queens that he will happily show you on the first date. Everything about him is transparent and real. I hesitated, but Sarah pulled out her phone and showed me Mark's very normal social media profiles. Photos of him coaching a high school soccer team. Pictures from a family barbecue with his parents and sister. Selfies with friends at casual bars. No fancy galas, no designer suits, no carefully curated image of success. Fine, I finally agreed. One date. Mark Sullivan was the opposite of Daniel Park in every way. Where Daniel had been polished and impressive, Mark was genuine and down-to-earth. Our first date was coffee at a regular neighborhood cafe, not some trendy spot meant to impress. He showed up in jeans and a sweater, with a friendly smile that didn't feel practiced or calculated. "Full disclosure," he said within the first 10 minutes of meeting me. "Sarah told me you'd been through a rough breakup. I just want you to know that I'm not looking to rush anything or pressure you. I'm just here to have a nice conversation with someone Sarah says is pretty amazing." His honesty was disarming. "Sarah's biased," I said with a small smile. "Maybe," he agreed. "But I'm willing to judge for myself if you are." We talked about our work, his passion for teaching history to often disinterested teenagers, my love of problem-solving and project management. We discussed books, movies, embarrassing family stories. "I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Astoria," he said. "I split it with my best friend from college because teacher salaries don't go far in New York. I drive a 2015 Honda Civic that has a weird rattle I can't figure out. My most exciting weekend activity is coaching soccer for underprivileged kids and meal prepping for the week. I'm not wealthy or powerful. I'm just a regular guy trying to make a difference in small ways." His honesty was like a breath of fresh air after Daniel's calculated charm. "That sounds really nice, actually," I said sincerely. "Yeah." He looked pleased. "Most women Sarah tries to set me up with are looking for someone more impressive. A lawyer or banker or entrepreneur. I'm just a teacher who likes his job and his students." "There's nothing just about being a teacher," I said firmly. "You're shaping young minds, helping kids learn to think critically about the world. That's more impressive than most corporate jobs, in my opinion." His smile was genuine and warm. "I like you already, Emma." We dated slowly, carefully. Mark respected every boundary I set, never pushing for more than I was comfortable with. Our second date was 2 weeks later, a casual dinner at a Thai restaurant he loved. Our third was a month after that, a comedy show in Brooklyn. "I want to be clear about my approach here," he said after our third date as we walked to the subway. "I really like you, Emma, but I get the sense you've been hurt and need time. So I'm not going to pressure you for daily texts or constant communication. I'm happy to go at whatever pace you need." "Thank you," I said, feeling tears prick my eyes at his understanding. "That means more than you know." After 3 months of dating, he invited me to meet his family at their weekly Sunday dinner in New Jersey. "No pressure," he said quickly. "But my parents host dinner every Sunday, and my sister's family comes, and it's usually pretty chaotic and fun. I thought you might enjoy it. But if it's too soon, I completely understand." Meeting the family felt significant, but his casual approach made it feel less intimidating. The Sullivan family dinner was exactly as he described, chaotic and fun. His parents were warm and welcoming. His sister Kathleen had 2 energetic kids who immediately recruited me for a game of tag, and everyone talked over each other in the way close families do. "So, Emma," his mother asked over pot roast, "Mark tells us you're a project manager." "That sounds impressive." "It's interesting work," I said. "I basically solve puzzles all day, how to get projects done on time and under budget." "Mark's always been a puzzle person, too," his father said. "Even as a kid, he'd spend hours on those 1,000-piece puzzles." "Dad, please don't tell embarrassing childhood stories," Mark groaned. "That's what parents are for." Kathleen laughed. The evening was lovely, normal, real. No pretense, no performance, just a family being themselves. On the drive back to the city, Mark glanced at me. "Too much. My family can be a lot." "They're wonderful," I said honestly. "Thank you for sharing them with me. My mom already texted me that she approves of you." He showed me his phone with a smile. "She's smart and kind. Don't mess this up," is what she said. Wise woman, I teased. Our relationship developed naturally over the following months. Mark was consistent. He called when he said he would, showed up on time, never made promises he couldn't keep. He was transparent about his life, introducing me to his friends, showing me his apartment, indeed modest but comfortable, talking openly about his past relationships and what he'd learned from them. I was engaged once, he told me about 5 months into our relationship. Her name was Stephanie. We were together for 3 years, engaged for 1. But she wanted a different life, more money, more status, less time spent with students and soccer practice. We wanted different things, so we ended it. It hurt, but it was the right decision. Do you still talk to her? I asked. No. We have mutual friends, so I hear about her occasionally. She's married to a finance guy now, living in Connecticut. I'm happy for her. She found what she wanted. His honesty about his past made me feel safe sharing mine. I told him about Marcus, about the canceled wedding and the humiliation. And eventually, I told him about Daniel. We were at his apartment, 6 months into dating, when I finally opened up about the full story. The deception, the double life, the discovery, the aftermath. Mark listened without interrupting, his hand holding mine. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment before speaking. Thank you for trusting me with that. I can't imagine how painful it must have been to discover someone you loved was lying to you so completely. It was, I admitted, and it made me terrified to trust anyone again. I understand that fear, he said gently, and I want you to know that I'll never give you reason to doubt my honesty. My life is an open book. If you ever have questions about anything, where I am, who I'm with, what I'm doing, you can ask, and I'll always tell you the truth. Not because I have to prove myself, but because honesty is the foundation of any real relationship. Tears filled my eyes. How are you so patient with me? With all my baggage and trust issues. Emma, everyone has baggage. Mine is probably smaller than yours, but it exists. And you're worth being patient for. You're kind, intelligent, funny, and genuine. You've been through something traumatic, and you're healing from it. I'm not intimidated by that. I'm honored that you're willing to try again with me. 1 year after my confrontation with Daniel at Chapter and Verse, Mark and I were walking through that same neighborhood. I'd avoided the area for months, but Mark had suggested we face it together. It doesn't have power over you anymore, he said. It's just a place, and we can make new memories there if you want. We walked past Chapter and Verse, and I felt a twinge but not the sharp pain I'd expected. Can I tell you something? Mark asked, stopping on the sidewalk and taking both my hands. Of course. I'm falling in love with you, Emma. Actually, I've already fallen. And I want you to know that I'll never give you a reason to doubt my honesty or my commitment. You deserve someone who treats you with respect, loyalty, and complete transparency. I want to be that person for you if you'll let me. Tears streamed down my face, but this time they were happy tears. I've fallen in love with you too, I said. You've shown me what a healthy relationship looks like, what honesty and respect feel like. And I'm so grateful I gave myself the chance to find you. We kissed there on the sidewalk, near the cafe where my nightmare had begun, but creating a new, better memory to replace it. Daniel Park had broken my heart, but he hadn't broken my spirit. He taught me painful lessons about deception and manipulation, but those lessons had made me wiser, more careful, stronger. And more importantly, they'd helped me recognize the real thing when I finally found it. Mark wasn't perfect. He had flaws and quirks and bad days. But he was honest. He was kind. He was real. And that was worth more than any carefully constructed fantasy. 6 months later, when Mark proposed at a Sunday family dinner, with his nieces holding a "Will you marry our uncle?" sign, I said yes without hesitation. Because I'd learned the difference between love that's built on lies and love that's built on truth. And I chose truth. I ran into Jennifer Park on a spring afternoon 2 years after the divorce. I was at a bookstore in Brooklyn, a different one than Chapter and Verse, which I still avoided, when I heard someone call my name. Jennifer looked different. Her hair was shorter, styled in a modern cut. She wore jeans and a casual sweater, and she looked lighter somehow. The tired sadness I'd seen in her eyes 2 years ago had been replaced with something that looked like peace. "Emma, I thought that was you," she said, smiling warmly. "Jennifer, hi," I said, genuinely happy to see her. "How are you?" "I'm good. Really good, actually." She gestured to the cafe area of the bookstore. "Do you have a few minutes to catch up?" Over coffee, Jennifer filled me in on her life. She'd gone back to school to finish the degree she'd abandoned when she married Daniel. She was working as a financial consultant now, using the skills she developed managing the household finances during her marriage. "Sophie's doing well," she said, showing me pictures on her phone. "She's 8 now, can you believe it? She's in 3rd grade and loves art class. Daniel sees her every other weekend, and they've settled into a routine. It's not perfect, but it's stable. That's good, I said sincerely. And I'm dating someone, Jennifer added with a shy smile. His name is Robert. He's a divorced father of 2, so he understands the complications. He's kind, honest, patient. Everything Daniel wasn't. I'm so happy for you, I said, meaning it completely. What about you? Jennifer asked. Last I heard, you were dating someone. I'm engaged, actually, I said, showing her my ring, a simple but beautiful vintage sapphire that Mark had chosen because he remembered me mentioning I preferred colored stones to diamonds. That's wonderful. Tell me about him. I told her about Mark, about his genuineness and kindness, about how he'd helped me learn to trust again. He sounds perfect for you, Jennifer said warmly. He's not perfect, I corrected gently, but he's perfect for me. And most importantly, he's honest. Jennifer nodded, understanding completely. That's what Robert is for me. After Daniel, honesty feels like the greatest gift anyone can give. We talked a while longer before exchanging new phone numbers and promising to stay in touch. As I walked home, I thought about how far both Jennifer and I had come. 2 years ago, we'd been broken by the same man's lies. Now we were both healing, both moving forward, both finding new love built on honesty and trust. Daniel Park had taken a lot from both of us, but he'd also, inadvertently, taught us valuable lessons about what we deserved and what we wouldn't accept. And in learning those lessons, we both found something better. That evening, I came home to find Mark in our apartment's small kitchen, attempting to cook dinner. He was a terrible cook, but he tried, and the effort always made me smile. How was your day? He asked, kissing me hello. Interesting, I said. I ran into Jennifer Park. Daniel's ex-wife? How is she? She's good? Moving forward, dating someone new. That's good, Mark said. Then he paused, looking at me carefully. Are you okay? Seeing her must have brought back memories. I'm fine, I said honestly. Actually, it was nice. A reminder of how far we've both come. You've come incredibly far, Mark said softly, pulling me into a hug. You're one of the strongest people I know. I'm not that strong, I protested. Yes, you are, he insisted. You survived betrayal and deception. You rebuilt your ability to trust. You opened your heart again despite being terrified. That's strength, Emma. As we ate Mark's slightly burnt dinner and laughed about his cooking attempts, I realized something. Daniel Park was now just a chapter in my story. A painful one, certainly, but a closed one. The story I was writing now, with Mark, with honesty, with real love, was so much better. And it had a much happier ending.